Hit record. Okay. Les, thank you so much for doing this, for being on the Practive magazine, number 16. Les, our guest. Les, I'm a big fan of your book, Predictable Success. So, can you just say something about you and tell us why you know so much about companies failing and succeeding?
Unfortunately, because I experienced it a lot. I spent the first third of my career until I was about 35 as a serial entrepreneur. I started as a CPA, as an accountant, and I was back in the UK. And at that point, there was a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship, and a lot of people came along to me and asked me to help them start businesses up. That meant writing business plans and raising money and so forth. But I just got the bug, and people began to ask me if I'd like to be involved with them. And frankly, I got the opportunity to cherry pick half a dozen, 8 startups a year for quite a long period of time. And I'd get involved, some of them by myself, some of them with other people. I'd work with them for a couple of years, and then most of them I sold them back to the other owners. Some of them we sold on. 2 of them failed. But by the time I was 35, I'd either by myself or with others started 42 businesses.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yes.
Even a dumb Irishman starts to see some patterns after. And I then spent the next 10 years with another serial entrepreneur running what are now called incubation programs. I didn't have a word for them then. But it was essentially the same thing that Techstars or Y Combinator do today. But we had to make it all up from scratch. And we devised our own syllabus, brought people in 2 nights a week for 6 months, taught them whatever they needed to know to launch businesses. And by that stage, I was starting to get a sense that there were some stages that every organization went through.
Yeah.
I've been able to prove my model, that we'll talk about in a moment or two, up to a certain size of business. But in the late 90s, I relocated over here to the US, essentially to be able to go work with very large organizations, because I wanted to prove the model out at scale. And so that's what I did for the next 10 years. And since then, I've been writing, teaching, consulting, and coaching about the predictable success model.
Yes, you come highly recommended from Michael Bungesh-Tanier. He said that you did a great work with him and with his company. And so let's get back to the stages that you said that there are these stages. Just shortly, if you could tell us about the stages the company go through.
So what I uncovered, I should make it clear that this is just stuff that I saw. It's observational. This is not theory, and no interns were harmed.
Right.
It's just what I saw. Every organization can go through 7 stages. Don't have to go through them all, but you can only go through them sequentially. You can't jump stages. And the stages very quickly are, first of all, early struggle.
Right.
Get up and going. Yes, you'll be familiar with that. It's typically a massive generalization, but it's about a 3-year period in general. 1 year realizing that what you thought was right isn't. 2nd year getting it right. 3rd year grooving it to profitability. It's a race against time to switch from external funding to funding from a profitable, sustainable market. That's all it is about. Massive mortality rate, about 80% of businesses don't make it. There are some exceptions, 1 in 5.
Mortality.
Early struggle. You get to the 2nd stage, and you'll like this very much. I call that stage fun.
Right.
Because it's fun. It really is fun. The business typically grows really fast. You found your profitable market. You're mining it like crazy. There's lots of low-hanging fruit. You can do double-digit, triple-digit growth in a month. It's real fun. Evangelical, tight group who are very aligned and really love and enjoy what they're doing. Fun brings you to the 3rd stage automatically. You don't have to do anything. Just by growing and being successful, the business becomes more complex.
Right.
And at some point, that complexity tips, and the business moves into the 3rd stage, which I call whitewater.
Right.
And during whitewater, essentially, you've just got to put systems and processes in place to deal with complexity. You master that, which is easily said, but whitewater is a very tricky time, can take a long time sometimes to fix it, because sometimes what you have to do is somewhat counterintuitive. We might talk about that later.
Yes.
If you get through whitewater, you get to the peak stage, which I call predictable success.
Okay.
And the only difference between predictable success and fun is that in predictable success, you can scale.
Right.
You can't scale in fun. You'll always hit that cap.
Right.
So in predictable success, you can scale. Theoretically, you can cycle in there for as long as you want. In practice, what tends to happen is, having put systems and processes in place and realize this is a good thing, we start to put too many in place, and the business begins the decline stage. And the first stage in decline is what I call treadmill. And in treadmill, we're just over systematized. We've put too many checklists in place. We're following it all by rote. We're not really using our creativity. That's fine. You can go into treadmill for a little while, come back out again. But if you stay there too long, what happens is the organization loses the ability to self-diagnose.
Right.
We start to like it like this, and we fall into the ultimate stage, which I call the big rut. Mm-hmm. And in the big rut, we're bureaucratic and we like it. And we manipulate data. We rebuke any challenge factor. We don't allow people to get us outside our comfort zone. Microsoft. And after a long period of time, usually many, many decades, the business will eventually fall into the final stage, which I call death rattle. And in death rattle, somebody buys the patents, buys the assets, buys the name. It's all over. Now, of course, we don't want to do this bit. We want to do this bit and decide whether you want to be in fun, which could be fun, or be in predictable success. So that's really the goal of the model, is to realize there are only two good stages to be in, and to choose which one you want to be in.
I mean, which you just said, I mean, and your book, everything just comes perfectly for me timed. Because for example, my small company, Nosby, we are in the we were really pretty fun. We were just three of us. It was just fantastic. I mean, just three of us. There was one programmer, one me doing everything else, and one customer support person. So like, it was perfect. Then we started, hiring and some struggling there, but it was still fun with just a small team. But now we are 15. 15 doesn't sound really big, but 15 is already this moment where I realized that as the CEO of the company, that it's already complicated. It's not like I can interact so often and so easily with everyone, because we're just 15, so I don't have that many hours to really be able to do everything, pinpoint everything, just like I used to when we were 3. So I think we were in this moment of whitewater a little bit. Because this is what happens, is that we've got a good product, we've got a good business model, we are profitable, we've been having fun, and it's been fun. But this is the moment where the fun sometimes is really distracted by lack of processes and everything. So, what can you tell me? Which kind of advice can you give me in this stage? Where should I watch out, and what should I focus on?
Well, a couple of things. One is that there's a stage in every organization's growth where you can't do it all virtually anymore. Which, it's just a sad, annoying fact of life. I wish it weren't so. Mm-hmm. And we'll get to the point where it doesn't need to be so, maybe in the next decade, but we're not there yet. And one of the things that happens in Whitewater is that there's a cultural shift that needs to happen that's very difficult to do whenever you're not face-to-face with many of the people that you're working with, because culture doesn't come down a pipe very well. And these two things are intercombined. The main shift that has to happen from fun to Whitewater to predictable success during Whitewater happens inside the head of the founder-owner.
Okay.
And that shift is that the business needs to stop being them, and they need to stop being the business. What happens during fun is there's a strong sense of self-identification with the business.
Okay.
And at some point during Whitewater, you've got to give that away and say, this business, it's not like my... So let me give you an example. Mm-hmm. I have a 6-year-old daughter. She's a beautiful little 6-year-old daughter, except she's not. She's a 30-year-old woman who's married and works in Oxford, England. And every time I go and visit her, I'm sitting in my hotel lobby waiting for this little 6-year-old daughter, a sweet little kid, to arrive. She's a 30-year-old woman. And your business is becoming an adult business.
Okay.
A mind shift that says, this is not all about Michael anymore. This is a business that's got to be treated as a thing and a person in its own right, is a big change in culture and in mindset. And it's very hard to just get that change internally with you or with the founder-owner and transmit the implications of all of that to everybody else if you've solely got a virtual business. Now, you can go back to being more virtual, annoyingly enough, a little later, but what I would suggest is you've got to think through that shift in mindset, and you've got to spend a lot more face time with people than you might have done previously. And obviously, you've got to put those systems and processes in place. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I would say, I'll finish with this point, is that aspect of it, putting the systems and processes in place, is typically less problematic in tech companies than it is in others, because you need systems and processes to produce good code. And so the mindset that says, hey, we need good systems and processes to run this business
right.
isn't as big a leap.
Right.
But you're still going to have to make that happen.
Yeah.
You're going to have to find out what those processes are, not overdo them, put them in place, and then you've got to support them. You've got to stick to them. See, it's founders who typically sandbag the processes first.
Okay.
Visionary founders suffer from what I call the squirrel syndrome.
Right.
This is really, really important until squirrel, right?
Okay.
I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make sure we do it for 3 months, squirrel. They'll often do something else. You have to discipline yourself to see yourself through whitewater, put those systems and processes in place, and you adhere to them as much as anybody else.
Yeah, this is perfect. It's exactly so. For example, I just noticed this in my company when we started introducing some of the processes. Is that the fact that I sometimes said, "We'll do the process for that," and so I promised we're gonna do this process for that, and I didn't do it for a month or two. I forgot about it. It was there, in my inbox, whatever. It was just there. I forgot about it, and then one of the employees said, "Michael, are you serious? Should I trust you? Because you said you would do it, and we need this, and you didn't." So then I realized how important this is. That I really, as you said, I don't do the squirrel.
There's two things going on here, Michael. One is that founders start businesses primarily for freedom and autonomy. That's
right.
why they want to start a business, is to be free.
Right.
Do their own thing.
Right.
The money is important, but it's a measuring rod. And secondly, visionary leaders are essentially starters. They love starting things.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of grinding out that granular detail and following through is really, I'd rather go do something else that's exciting. But you put those two things together and then bring that from the perspective of you leading adherence to systems and processes, it's constantly a tension. Because you don't want to do that, but you see that everybody else needs to do it, but they see you don't do it, and they say it's not really important, so they don't do it either. And here's the insider tip that I'd give you. If you're really serious about this, go make yourself accountable. Get a mentor or a coach and make yourself accountable and have regular once-a-month meetings. Tell them what you're putting in place. Tell them what you're going to adhere to, and put yourself under accountability. And that'll really accelerate what you're trying to achieve. Oh,
great, exactly. So yeah, so this is something we need here. And then thank you. This is good stuff. Les, I think you're right about the fact that for a technical company it's easier for this kind of thing, because we already started. Some of the processes were very easy to implement because we're a technical company, and of course the other thing is that because we are in productivity, so it's also easier because we know the checklists, we know which things that work, things that don't work, and we interview very smart people. So in this one we learn a lot. And tell me. Your shift from Ireland to USA, what were the biggest challenges for you to change and to move to the States and also to adapt a mindset of a big company, because you were supposed to, you are right now advising very big companies and everything. So was it a struggle for you as an Irishman to move to the States, and how was it?
It really wasn't. I've been very lucky, Michael. I've been coming backwards and forwards to the US for many years by then.
Oh, okay.
I've fallen in love with a little town on the west coast, just above San Francisco, and so I'd been going there for maybe 5 years. And there just came a point when it was natural for me I was spending longer there than back in the UK. I think the biggest challenges that I've faced, interestingly, have had both a positive and a negative side, and that is we Irish folks tend to be caricatured a lot. So when people hear my accent, they make a set of presumptions.
Right.
And that's fine by me. I have no problem with that at all. But I have to say also my accent's been quite helpful. People seem to like listening to it over here. So that's stood me in good stead. But I was fortunate in that I came with a specific purpose. Like I said, I wanted to tease out this model with large companies. And I was very lucky back then in the late 90s. I got to work with Microsoft. I got to work with the US Army. I got to work with Harvard University, the biggest non-commercial organization, or one of them here in the US. And to be able to tease out all of that, companies like American Express, that was very fortunate. And I think a little bit of the Irish gift of the gab did me no harm in getting me in there in the first place. So
okay.
The transitions worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
I live on the East Coast now,
Mm-hmm.
near Boston. And I've got to say, I love the US. I'm really pleased to have moved over here.
And tell me, so for you to be working with these companies constantly and coaching and teaching and having time for interviews like this one, how do you get all these things done? I mean, do you have a team behind you that helps you with that? How do you? I mean, and how it evolved over years? Tell me what are your productivity tips and tricks that worked for you?
Well, I have a team of one who's not here. So I'm pointing to where he would be. It's my son David, who just joined me at the start of this year.
Okay.
He's my COO. And that's been a big change for me. It's been wonderful. But until then, for the last 17 years, I've worked entirely on my own. And I guess first of all, I really intellectually value and understand the importance in being on top of your working environment. In fact, in the coaching and teaching and leadership that I do, what I teach is being the foundational skill of leadership is the ability to manage yourself.
Right.
You've got 500 unanswered emails and you're triple booked that afternoon and you can't find a single important document. You're not going to lead. You're just not going to.
Mm-hmm.
Story. You might have some fantastic flash in the pan, brilliant idea that you'll project a vomit on somebody, but you're not going to have the ability to really follow it through. So I teach productivity as being the key foundational skill for
mm-hmm.
leadership. It's not a skill of leadership, but you have to have it in order to be an effective leader. And I guess the things that have worked for me is, first of all, you will forgive what I'm about to say, Michael. I'm going to exempt your magazine from this. But probably the biggest benefit to me, or the thing that gave me the greatest accelerant in productivity, was I gave up productivity porn, as I used to call it,
mm-hmm.
some years back. I used to avidly follow every fork of every open source version. I'm a GTD fan.
Okay.
David Allen is a friend of mine.
Right.
The company is a client of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I've been practicing GTD since the book came out, and I love GTD, and I think it's fantastic. But I got into a phase where I was spending so long debating tags versus folders versus whatever. And now I've just got a system that it works, and I've refused to change it. It works, and I won't even read something that might threaten my peace of mind. So I've got a nice system that works for me. Anything I want to keep, I dump it into Evernote, and I find the searching facility is so good.
Yep.
I rarely have to do anything else but just dump it in there. I have a few notebooks, but by and large, I just throw it in. All my lists are in OmniFocus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that worked for me was realizing I couldn't make Evernote work for me for lists, and I couldn't make OmniFocus work for dumping stuff in. So all my lists are in OmniFocus. All my reference material is in Evernote, and I do everything else in Gmail. If I need to remind myself of something one-off, I'll actually send an email. I've got I made a big investment in filters. So I have 2 email addresses that I use for stuff I buy online and newsletters.
Right.
That all gets filtered to a weekly scan folder that I just look on Friday afternoons. And I probably now, without exaggeration, I probably only get between 10 and 15 emails a day that actually get to my inbox.
Okay.
So I keep inbox zero maybe 4 times a day. I just flash through it and do it. But I delegate a lot. So a lot of stuff automatically goes to my son or to other people who are handling it. And I'm just pretty ruthless about it.
Yeah. I think being what I've learned over the years about GTD and about productivity is being ruthless is really important because when you're driving a car, you cannot half overtake. I mean, you either overtake or you don't. I mean, but you cannot do it. When you half overtake, there's an accident coming. So this is the same thing with I would say the decisions when you inbox zero and everything. You just decide what to do with this email. You don't read it twice, right? So
I think it also helps to be fundamentally lazy, which is what I am. And I value my time a lot, and I might be using it, to go snooze in my armchair, which I can see across the way here, or I might be using it just to read or whatever. But I value that a lot, and so I work very hard to protect it, and I do. I work hard on my productivity, but I'm glad to say I've got it to the point now where it's not mechanical and I don't need to force it that much. I mean, once in a blue moon I have to remind myself to do a weekly review on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning, but by and large, it pretty much flows and it works and I just let it work.
Perfect. Let's end with that. Thank you so much, Les. Fantastic interview. Thank you so much. There will be more information about Les in the magazine and links to your talks and to your website. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Les, fantastic. Thank you.